What does Parshat Vaishlach have to do with Dracula? I'm Yoni from Holster Mountain Tours, and this is Pop Culture and the Parsha. Welcome to Pop Culture and the Parsha, the show where I take the weekly Parsha and I compare it to some aspect of pop culture, whether it's TV, movies, books, plays, whatever. Today, I want to talk about the connection between the Parsha of Vayishlach and the famous vampire story Dracula. What do the two have in common? Well, let's see what they're both about. Let's dive right into the Parsha. The first thing is we have Yaakov on his way back into Eretz Canaan, and before the night before he meets with his brother Esav, a man comes and wrestles with him. Yes, I know that most people say that it's an angel, but we're going to get to that. A man comes and wrestles with him, injuring Yaakov in the thigh. And then he finally has to run away. The next day, Yaakov meets with Esav. He splits the camp into two. He meets with Esav. They have a tearful reunion. And Esav gives Yaakov a huge embrace, which we will talk about later also. We then have the parting of ways between Yaakov and Esav. And Yaakov goes and settles near Shechem. We have by the city of Shechem, the leader of the city, named Shechem, kidnaps and rapes Dinah, Yaakov's daughter. We then have Shimon and Levi annihilating the entire city of Shechem. And the Parsha ends with the birth of Binyamin and the death of Yaakov's beloved wife, Rachel. So there's a lot to deal with in that, and there are a lot of pop culture references that we can compare it to. But I wanted to talk about the wrestling part and the hugging part, and how that compares with Dracula. What is Dracula all about? Dracula is about a count named Dracula who lives in Transylvania, and he is a vampire. Now, this is one of the most famous vampire stories, but it's by no stretch of the imagination the only vampire story. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of vampire stories in pop culture. And I just want to talk a little bit about that. I want to talk about Dracula specifically, but vampires in general. And what does this have to do with the Parsha? Well, basically, it's my contention that Esav was a vampire. Okay? And now stay with me for a second. I know this is weird, but Esav definitely was a vampire. And there's ample evidence to support this. A few Parshiot back, in Parshat Toldot, we read about how Yitzchak loved Esav because, and it says in the Parsha, Ki tzayid befiv, he would hunt with his mouth. Who hunts with their mouths? And I know the Mefarshim go into all kinds of explanations about it, but the Pshat says that he hunts with his mouth. Okay? Later on, it also, in the next pasuk rather, it says that Esav was ish yodea tzayid ish sadeh. He was a man who knows how to hunt, comma, a man of the field. But the problem is the Torah doesn't have any commas. It just says ish yodea tzayid ish sadeh, which could be read as a man who knows how to hunt, men of the field. We know that he goes out hunting. We know that he goes out and he's very violent. And when he comes in all hungry, he doesn't say to Yaakov, can I please have some of what you're making? He says, Haliteni na min ha'adom hazeh. Pour that red liquid in my throat. I need red. I need to drink red. And as anyone who knows Shaun of the Dead knows, red is basically blood. Then we get to our Parsha. How does this relate to our Parsha, the whole vampire thing? Well, as I said, just before Yaakov went to meet with Esav, a man came and wrestled with him at night. Now, the Torah says it was a man, and the Mefarshim say it was a malach. The word is malach, which most people translate as angel. But malach, we all know, can also be translated as messenger. This was a messenger of Esav's. And when you read through Dracula, or any other mythology of vampires, you find that the head vampire always has underling vampires. This was actually a key plot point in the vampire movie, The Lost Boys, that they were trying to find the head vampire, because once you kill the head vampire, the other vampires will die also. So this messenger of Esav's could be an underling vampire. Now, why would I say that? What indication is there that this guy's a vampire? Because while he's wrestling with Yaakov, he urgently needs to leave when the sun is coming up. He has to get out of there. He starts freaking out because the sun is coming up. Who freaks out like that? I don't know. Maybe vampires. So those are the things that are in the Pshat itself, but we also need to delve a little bit into the Midrash, because as I said, I wanted to talk about the hug between Esav and Yaakov. When Esav and Yaakov hug one another, it says in the Pshat, it says in the Torah, that Esav kissed Yaakov. and there are dots over each of the letters in the word kiss, Vayishlach. Why are there dots over it? Well, the Mefarshim come along and the Midrash comes along and tells us that Esav actually tried to bite Yaakov's neck, but because of divine protection, Yaakov was protected from that bite. Who bites necks? Who bites necks but vampires? Definitely vampires bite necks. It's a very vampire move to try to bite someone's neck. So all of these things add up to vampire ideas. By the way, I'm not going to talk about the idea of whether or not he was out in the sunlight, because first of all, you could understand that he met Yaakov after sunset, but also, if he's a powerful enough vampire, he can go out in the daylight, as you see in Anne Rice's novels. I'm not going to go into the whole subject of vampires going out in daylight, because it is a relatively difficult part of vampire mythology. So we'll leave that for another time. Just one final thing, the final topper on the vampire cake is the way that Esav died. According to the Midrash, Esav, spoiler alert, Esav was blocking the funeral procession when Yaakov's sons wanted to bury him in Marat HaMachpelah, and there was an argument that had ensued. And one of Yaakov's grandsons, a guy by the name of Chushim, he was deaf, and he had no idea what the argument was about, or even who this guy was that was blocking his grandfather's funeral procession. But he killed Esav, according to the Midrash, by picking up a block of wood, or maybe a stake of wood, a wooden stake, you might say, and he ended up not only killing Esav with it, but cutting off his head. We know from Dracula and from many other vampire myths, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and countless others, that two of the best ways to kill a vampire is drive a stake of wood through his heart and to cut off his head. So Esav died both of those ways. Pretty much says vampire to me. So that's a little bit about how this week's Parsha connects to Dracula. If you know of another way that this week's Parsha connects to Dracula or any other aspect of pop culture, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, just like and share this video, share it on social media, or share it at the Shabbat table. Either way, it's fine by me. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Until next week, Shabbat Shalom.